A lot of podcasts like to talk about what games they've been playing lately at the top of every episode. Personally, I don't do that because, frankly, I don't think you really care about what I've been playing every other week. At the same time, though, I do have a ton of games I want to chat about, so while we're at this midway point of 2022, I thought I'd take a look back at the top 10 games I have played so far this year, with a bit of a twist though. This list is going to be the top games that I've played this year, but not necessarily made up of games that released this year. I think this is a bit more interesting, as sure, there are some obvious games that will make an appearance on this list, but for the most part, nearly anything could show up here. It will keep you on your toes and make it a lot more interesting. At least I hope so. It's no secret what one of these games will be at the top regions of this list, but the interesting thing about that older Circle game is that it is almost too good, to the point where I needed to venture far out of the type of games I usually play to find experiences that I could enjoy without subconsciously always comparing it to that giant George R.R. Miyazaki-shaped elephant in my gaming headspace this year. Either way, I've gone on long enough. Let's get to the list. Number 10. Yes, I bet you were not expecting to see Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy anywhere on this list. Overview of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy. This is a visual novel experience. However, you are playing as a up-and-coming lawyer, which makes things very interesting. I don't play a ton of visual novels, which is the main reason why I've waited a billion years to finally check out this Phoenix Wright game. However, with the twist of you being a lawyer and needing to really pay attention to everything people say in order to spot contradictions in their story, is a brilliant way to make sure that you are not zoning out when other characters are talking. That's a problem that I have anytime I've played any similar games to this or any other visual novels, is I'll just eventually just want to get to the big action scenes or the big like kind of story reveals, and I might start mashing that skip button a little bit too much. But if you do that in this game, you're going to miss out on some vital cues that your witnesses may have that will help you spot contradictions. It's kind of weird how I actually decided to pick this game up, to be honest. Some of you may or may not know about what's going on with the Act Man on YouTube, but he made a pretty hilarious video that was kind of documenting a lot of the misgivings that another fellow YouTuber had done, and he did so basically using this game as his kind of fake trial of said YouTuber. And I kind of just really liked the different audio cues and the different sounds and music that are tied to this game, that I kind of just dove in. It was on sale, which really, really helped. But overall, this is a fantastic game. Phoenix Wright is a great character. All of the people that are on trial, the other opponent lawyers you have, the different witnesses and characters in the game are all memorable. They all kind of fit into a caricature of sorts, but I kind of really liked almost everyone I've talked to so far. I'm not all the way through the game yet. I think I finished the first game and I'm in the second game somewhere, but it's so much fun. Like I said, you're looking in the environments, you're paying way more attention there than you would typically in a game like this, because you're trying to see clues and find different ways that you can kind of put your case together. And then anytime you hit that objection button, obviously, is fantastic. And when you really start getting the plaintiff or the witness kind of like tripping over their words, and kind of you're picking out all of their inconsistencies and all their contradictions, and they start fumbling and they start kind of snowballing out of control, it just feels really good because the music picks up right when that starts happening. And then, oh man, it's just such a good experience. I really regret not picking this up when it originally came out. This is definitely one of the most surprising experiences I've had this year. It's just a game that I never expected to even try. Definitely never expected to really, really enjoy it. And I know there's more of these games available. Even there's more of these games available on Xbox or PlayStation. So once I'm done with the trilogy, I definitely plan on jumping into more entries. And I hope that this game makes a comeback in some way. I would love to see more Phoenix Wright games. It's just like a timeless kind of style. It's just really, really good. Number 9. Pokemon Legends Arceus. This is the first Pokemon game that I have played since Pokemon Yellow. I got Pokemon Blue, I believe, with my blue Game Boy Pocket around the time that it came out, and I remember getting Pokemon Yellow for my birthday the following year. I loved these games just like every kid my age did, but after Yellow, I just never got another one. I did graduate from a Game Boy Pocket to a Game Boy Advance, and I was able to get Golden Sun, which I really, really liked. But after Golden Sun, just based on my situation at home and my family and whatnot, a lot of the times my games were picked up at flea markets or yard sales or used in some way, shape, or form. And as you know, any game from Nintendo really holds on to that value for dear life, and you don't often see them on sale or for a budget price. So I just never really picked up any other Pokemon games leading into like the Xbox generation. And after the Xbox came out, I just never played handhelds anymore after that. So my last experience with Pokemon was actually Yellow, which was weird for me to jump into Arceus. I actually only did it because A, my kid was interested in the Pokemon show, and B, my girlfriend had a lot of points at Shoppers and just bought this for our daughter. So I played it, obviously. But it is a really awesome game. It's not anything like spectacular. It's not going to blow you away with its gameplay mechanics. Although I will say it is pretty cool to actually run around in third person, see the Pokemon on the screen. They're not random encounters, and actually aim and throw a Pokeball. That's something that I thought was actually quite a novel experience. And then being able to in the battles, in the Pokemon battles, walk around and see things happen from different angles as you like command your Pokemon to do is different. Attacks was quite good. The story's basically non-existent, at least as far as I'm in the game. There isn't really a story. The story is you came out of the sky and you had to collect them all. That's basically the story. But the gameplay loop is just so relaxing and it's kind of addicting, honestly. This is a game that I often play while I'm doing other things, like if I'm watching sports or if I'm watching a podcast or listening to like some kind of internet video or anything like that. Something where I can play this game without having to give it 100% attention. And that's mostly due to the fact that there isn't really a story to keep up with. So it is a game that I've actually played quite a bit of because I do enjoy watching the average movie or watching sports or doing other things versus gaming. But I always have that itch to game at all times. So this kind of helps me with that. It has pretty iconic sound effects, very good music, especially the music in the main city. The Jubilife Village theme is so relaxing and great. I love hearing that music. This is just a really decent game. Like I said, visuals not that great. Gameplay is not going to blow you away, but it's kind of like Stardew Valley in a way. I'm not going to compare those games directly, but Stardew Valley has that similar effect where you kind of you're not doing anything special when you're playing that game, but you're just in the zone. You just feel relaxed and you just feel good. You're just kind of hanging out. It's kind of like the equivalent of watching like, I don't know, People's Court or like Maury. You're not learning anything. You're not gaining anything. You don't even really like necessarily what you're doing that much, but you do it anyway because you're just chilling and you're just sitting there and it's having fun. That's my number 9, Pokemon Legends Arceus. Number 8. Tunic is nearly a perfect tribute to A Link to the Past, which is my second favorite game on Super Nintendo. I wish I still had my copy of Demon's Crest. But A Link to the Past is obviously a seminal game in gaming history. It's probably, all things considered, the best game on the Super Nintendo. And this is clearly a tribute to that game. It almost feels impossible that this game was made by only one person. And I know in interviews, he'll be the first to say that it wasn't just one person. He had people help with the music. He had people help with QA and stuff like that. But realistically, let's give the man his credit. He did the lion's share of everything that went into this game. And it blows my mind what he was able to achieve here. The game is incredibly charming. The gameplay is very, very tight. And most importantly, the incredible understanding of the source material, I'm talking about Link to the Past and similar games like that, lead to some impeccable game direction here. You may get lost every now and then, but you'll always find your way if you just pay attention and look. It really kind of harkens back to that old school game design where they weren't necessarily holding everybody's hands because, let's be real, these games needed to last, and the cartridges were only so big, so they couldn't necessarily guide you through everything, or the experience wouldn't last as long, and it really leads to a better experience. This type of game design will show its face again at the end of this list. Hint, hint, spoilers ahead. But I really, really, really liked Tunic. So many little details and such a massive scope for the size of the team. It's on Game Pass. 100% recommend jumping into Tunic. Number 7. Horizon Forbidden West. Horizon Forbidden West obviously is a sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn for the PS4, and it brings Aloy back, but this time she is looking insane. This is the best looking game I think I've ever seen in my life. It's so beautiful and lush and gorgeous. It's like every 5 steps is there, you're in a screenshot worthy scenario. It has one of the most realistic depictions of human beings I have ever seen, not just in their visual appearance, but their mannerisms, the way they talk, and yes, the way they look. It's just insane. Obviously, I am aware that they are wearing insane clothes that are made up of like monster parts or robot parts and stuff like that. But just how they emote, their faces, just their body types, their sizes. This is literally the most realistic depiction of human beings I've ever seen. And I was even side quest characters that most people aren't even going to see look amazing. And the main quest characters, like the main cast, it's just unbelievable. The gameplay is as tight as ever. In fact, it's even better than it was in Horizon Zero Dawn. It runs phenomenally after the patch recently at a solid 60 FPS. It is a gorgeous game that might be slightly too big, perhaps. I am kind of a completionist with these games, so I have been putting in a ton of hours into the game, but I feel like I'm just now kind of reaching where the story starts to pick up because I've just been doing so much. But the main issue I have with this, and the reason why I think it's a little lower on this list than it really should be, is because it just came out at the worst time ever. I got my collector's edition of Horizon Forbidden West like 3 days maybe before Elden Ring came out. Another spoiler for the top of this list, which I don't think is going to be a surprise to anybody. But I had to play this game for 3 days, really like what I've done and what I've played, and then immediately quit cold turkey and go into Elden Ring for like a month straight. Elden Ring is a game that I was going to do a lot of multiplayer in, so it really benefited from being there at launch, which was the basis of my decision to kind of quit Horizon and jump into that game. And then coming back to it after maybe 10 hours and trying to kind of re-immerse myself into the game was challenging. And it's the reason why I didn't no-life it like I did with the first game. Horizon Zero Dawn, as soon as that game went in my PlayStation, it didn't come out until I platinumed it. Which I can't say the same for this one, unfortunately. However, thinking of it and writing my notes down, I literally have no negative things to say about this game. So I'm jumping back into it really soon. I'm going to platinum it just like the first one, and it's definitely a game I recommend picking up. Number 6. Card Shark is a genius example of perfect game design. I know those are kind of big words to say for such a small little game, but this game blew me away with how clever it is. It is literally amazing. Essentially, in this game, you play as a simple bartender working at a bar, or maybe they call it a tavern or a pub in olden times France. And one day, a mysterious kind of swindler shows up, and he's playing a game of cards with another patron. Safe to say, the shit hits the fan, and the patron ends up killing your boss, and you end up leaving the tavern to travel along France with this swindler. And throughout this process, you will venture to various different places in ancient France, and speak with various individuals, performing card tricks, not necessarily tricks, but card cheats to cheat all of these people out of their money and out of their knowledge. Because every time you learn a new skill and a new cheat and you cheat somebody else, little tidbits of the story start to unravel, and you will be surprised at how deep this web goes. It goes from pretty aimless and pretty kind of weird to being a interesting political drama that kind of is way better than it has any right to be. But the core of this game is the gameplay. It's so incredible. There are, I believe, 28 different card tricks that you'll learn throughout the game, and they keep adding new ways to cheat people out of money, and then they'll take these tricks and compound them on top of each other, so you have to do them in different sequences. And they are just so clever. None of these are just simply press a button and do a trick. They all require a sequence of button presses or memory, or just you have to pay attention, and it really requires a pretty solid amount of brain power, from being honest. You can't just lean back and leisurely play this game, or else you're going to fail. And at the bottom of the screen while you're playing, you'll have this kind of suspicion meter. So every time you mess up a trick or mess up a cheat, the person who you're playing against will get more and more suspicious, to the point where they may just kill you, which happened to me a few times. So the stakes are there, and you'll get to this point where you've lost a few hands, you're starting to run out of money, and the suspicion meter has gone up, and you really need to nail this. And this tension that this game provides is just so palpable, and I can't believe how good this game is. It's one of the best games of the year, and it's flying criminally low under everyone's radar. I 100% recommend checking this out. There's actually a demo available that's quite meaty, to be honest. There's a lot of content in the demo, and I believe that the process, or the how far you get in the demo, will actually carry over to the main game on the eShop. So I'll definitely check out the demo. You owe it to yourself. This is literally almost a perfect game for what it is. It's one of my favorite games I played in a long time. It just surprised me so much. I've never even thought of this gameplay concept.
Number 5.
Neon White. In Neon White, you play as the titular Neon White, who is a neon. What neons are kind of people who have died and gone to a purgatory and have been assigned by different angels to kind of help them with various tasks in terms of slaying demons and stuff like that, for a chance opportunity at gaining entry into heaven. There are several neons in the game that you will interact with, but that's kind of secondary to the amazing gameplay that's on display here. To kind of describe, I think the best way to describe this game is that it is kind of like the Gauntlet run from Titanfall 2, if you remember that, where you are combining a mix of gunplay, very good movement abilities, and parkour to kind of get from one end of the stage to the other, take out all the targets in the fastest time possible. It takes that concept and it raises it to like unfathomable levels. You pick up cards throughout the levels, which are in turn kind of your weapon that you can use to shoot like weapons. There's different types. There's handguns, machine guns, and bolt action rifles, and the kind of usual suspects you'd expect for guns. But every single gun that you pick up has a throwaway mechanic where you can press a button to throw the gun away, and it will kind of help you in some way, shape, or form in terms of your movement. So if you throw away a handgun, it will give you a little bit of a super jump. If you throw away a machine gun, it will in turn act as a bomb that can blow up barriers that are blocking you, or just kill a huge amount of demons that are in your way. Every time I go through one of these levels, it's just a thrill. When you get to the end and you see that you're like only a couple seconds off that high platinum ranking, you're just going back in every single time to kind of etch out those different rankings. It's just so polished, so smooth. It runs really, really well on the Switch, surprisingly. It runs at a solid 60 FPS. There are some dips here and there because, I mean, it is a Nintendo Switch, but it is just a crazy game. It's oozing with style. It really kind of... The character aesthetics kind of remind me a little bit of Hades, although it's definitely a little bit more anime than that. And it has extremely good music, which is essential for a game like this. And yeah, this is one of the newest games on the list. I don't think it has a demo on the eShop, but it's a game that I definitely recommend checking out. It's clearly one of the best games I've played so far this year. It has such an addicting gameplay loop. I'm in love with Neon White.
Number 4. Kirby's Forgotten Land. This is a game that I bought with the sole purpose of playing co-op with my daughter, and it had been one of the best experiences I've had gaming with her ever. It rivals Luigi's Mansion 3 in that regard, and is just one of the most purest Nintendo games I think I've ever played, if you know what I mean. Essentially, the game is more of a harken to Mario Odyssey kind of version of Kirby, where you are playing in independent levels that you access through kind of an overworld, but they are much bigger and open-ended in 3D, obviously. Kirby has a ton of awesome powers that you can collect, which was always really fun. Has very cute characters, a pretty bog standard story, but it hit all the right notes for me and my daughter especially. The story basically revolves around Kirby being transported into the, quote, Forgotten Lands and going on a quest to save his friends, the Waddle Dees, from the various floras and faunas that are kind of attacking them and kidnapping them. And of course, King Dedede's involved. And there's just a lot of fun to be had in this game. The gameplay itself is just very, very fun. There's a lot of cool platforming, a lot of cool kind of combat scenarios, especially some really nice boss fights. What's really interesting is when you kind of complete the game's not necessarily completed, where you get transported into this other dimension where you play remixed versions of the other levels, and they're actually remixed like quite significantly, and they are significantly more challenging, which was really refreshing because the game is quite easy as it is kind of meant for a younger audience, but I definitely enjoyed the more challenging kind of end game, which is weird to say for a Kirby game. I was also very happy that they included a Spring Breeze mode, which is what we mostly played on, as it's just a more easy version. And the co-op is perfect because it allows player one, my daughter, to be Kirby and be kind of the center point of everything that's going on. And then I play as a Waddle Dee, which is more or less a helper to her, which is kind of the kind of co-op relationship that I'm looking for in the games that I play with my 5-year-old daughter. Overall, ironically enough, this is easily my most played game outside of Elden Ring so far this year. According to my Nintendo Switch, I am closing in on 50 hours played of Kirby, believe it or not. That's my number 5 game, and it's one of my favorite experiences of the year so far. Number 3. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. This is one of the oldest games on this list, having come out originally, I think, in 2011, but it's new for me, and it's a game that I started playing this year. Overall in the story, I'm not going to get into any real spoilers here, but it has a pretty interesting concept from the get-go. There are these two massive titans, Bionis and Mechonis, who are kind of eternally at war with each other until one day they both hit each other with fatal blows that basically kill themselves. And because of how massive they are, they actually spawn their own ecosystems on top of each other and start kind of sustaining life. Entire settlements of people were born
born on Bionis, and they've created cities and towns, and it's basically like a planet to them. That's how big these titans are. But on the other end of the spectrum, on Mechonis, they have spawned a machine army that is hell-bent on taking out everybody on Bionis. And they're eternally at conflict with each other, and you play as Shulk, the protagonist, who mysteriously has the power to wield this kind of crazy sword called the Monado, which is one of the only things you can do, or one of the only weapons that are on Bionis that's capable of harming the Mechon warriors. And what follows is a pretty awesome story with some pretty awesome characters. A lot of really crazy stuff happened, even in just the first like 10 or so hours of the game. The gameplay is very reminiscent of an MMO. It's not a turn-based JRPG by any means. You have a few amount of abilities on a hotbar, just like you would in an MMO, and you can freely move around the battlefield while you're fighting, and a lot of your abilities are reliant on your positioning, so you may have powers that will kind of do more damage or have a better effect if you attack from like the side or the back or something like that. So you're constantly managing aggro, just like you would in an MMO. The side quests work exactly like they would in an MMO. Go here, collect this, kill this, etc. However, they automatically turn in, which really helps with the pacing. The music is fantastic. The scope and the size of the worlds is just really, really crazy for a Nintendo game when you consider how much power that console has. It has bigger areas than you'll see in other games of the similar games that are on more powerful consoles. Obviously, it's not the most graphically impressive game out there because, again, it is a Switch game, but the scale and scope of the world is pretty awesome, and the art direction is really great. So there are still some breathtaking vistas and really awesome scenery and stuff like that. It's really, really cool, and I'm trying to finish this and 2 before Xenoblade 3 comes out. I have no chance in doing that because these are really, really long games, but I think as somebody who doesn't play a lot or any really JRPGs, this is probably one of the best ones I've ever played, and it's one of the best games I've played so far this year.
Number 2.
The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Another old game that has made it very high on this list. I am somebody who is in a Nintendo renaissance, if you haven't noticed so far. The majority of this list is Nintendo games, and that's because of a unique phenomenon that happened after I played the next game that we're going to talk about. This game, Skyward Sword, is the last Zelda game that came out before Breath of the Wild. It was a game that was originally released as a Wii game, so it is very heavily tied into that motion control scheme, but Nintendo have kind of reworked the controls to support that style of play with the Joy-Cons, but also they have a kind of pro controller or controller way of controlling the game, if that makes sense to you. I think both play really, really well. I think the actual best way to play this, though, is still the Wii version, but this is a game that is a prequel story to Zelda, so it really had me interested in it because I loved Breath of the Wild. There's some really fantastic and creative puzzles in this game. Really, you can kind of see I'm no Zelda expert, so this might be like wrong what I'm saying right now, but playing Skyward Sword and seeing how creative the puzzles are and how awesome all the mechanics kind of mold together, I could really understand how the next evolution of this was Breath of the Wild, because that's my favorite part of Breath of the Wild. It has great Zelda characters. It has a really good story, like I said. I love the soundtrack. I love the ability that you have to fly on your Loftwing bird, to fly to the different areas. You can fast travel, kind of, but you fast travel from the area back up to Skyloft, which is like the town that's in the sky, and you fly around on the bird, which is like really, really fun. The bosses are very fun to fight because they are so deeply tied into the mechanics of the different gameplay elements, like the directional swinging of the sword, swinging up and down or left and right or diagonally. Sometimes you have to be very accurate with how you swing, which works really well with the motion controls, but also works really well with the thumbstick controls. It's just a great game. Combat's interesting. I actually have played a surprising amount of this with the motion control setup on the Joy-Cons, which is the first time I've done that with literally any game, as I was kind of really against motion controls, at least in the original early days of the Wii, having just been playing it at a friend's house. So I love Zelda since Breath of the Wild. I'm interested in playing all of the Zelda games. The next one on my list is going to be Ocarina of Time, because I just secured one of those Nintendo 64 controllers. And yeah, I'm a big Zelda fanboy now. I'm a big Nintendo fanboy now. And Skyward Sword is one of the best games I played so far this year.
Number 1.
Elden Ring. There's no surprise here. Elden Ring is possibly the greatest open world that video games has ever seen. Everywhere you look, there is something to discover, and even after nearly 100 hours, I definitely have not seen anywhere close to everything that this game has to offer. Combat in the Souls series has always been considered great, but it is nearly perfected in Elden Ring. The addition of the jump, the mounted combat, and the sheer vastness of the available weapons and combat arts is staggering. Elden Ring is a full RPG, which you can't say the same for of all Souls games. The ways in which you could build your character has always been pretty flexible in the core Souls games, but the build possibilities you have here are near limitless. And best of all, almost every way to play the game is completely viable. The game is beautiful. Every vista makes you stop to take a screenshot. Every creature is so unique, and the many bosses are just all showpieces. I love Elden Ring. It is a battle between Elden Ring and God of War for my favorite single-player game of all time. The multiplayer mechanics in this are phenomenal. It's the best the series has ever had. I've had so much fun just PvPing. I've had so much fun helping random strangers, helping my friends beat bosses who have never played a Souls game. It's the most approachable game, but it doesn't sacrifice the difficulty. It's still extremely hard, but you have ways that make it easier if you put the work in, which is exactly how any RPG should feel. This is easily the best game that's come out this year. It's easily the best game that's come out since God of War 2018. There is really nothing that can touch this game. It is a absolute masterpiece. 10 out of 10, no question. Elden Ring is a must play for anybody who enjoys video games, even slightly. It is my favorite game so far in 2022. Hey, if you made it to the end of this list, thank you so much for watching. What are your favorite games of 2022? And what do you think of this kind of way of including games that didn't just come out in 2022? Was it more interesting? Was it less interesting? I do plan on doing a follow-up to this, obviously, at the end of the year for my favorite games of the year or favorite games I played so far in 2022. Would you rather me keep that to specifically games that came out this year? Or do you like this kind of anything can show up level of Smash Bros. Character reveal style favorite game reveals where I can include literally anything, including visual novels from the Nintendo DS or Wii games that have been remade for the Switch. Either way, I would love to hear your feedback. Thanks again for watching. Remember to have fun out there, and I'll talk to you soon.